Well, Excellencies, distinguished guests, please take your seats and we can get on to the final session of the forum. I hope that you're raring to go with your questions and comments for our final session, which touches on a subject that intrigues everyone and perhaps gives us a sense that there's much more going on out there than in the world of global politics and diplomacy than we actually know about. It's the subject of this discussion, which is the WikiLeaks phenomenon, a political game by puppet masters or a demonstration of the superiority of virtuality over reality, the growing role of internet technologies in the development of global political processes. That has to be the longest title I've ever read, but I did it so the moderator doesn't have to repeat it. Now, please give a warm welcome to TV journalist and TV host of the KTK channel here in Kazakhstan, Alexei Shakhmatov.
Good evening, dear ladies and gentlemen. Let us start the final 7th session of the Eurasian Media Forum. I'm sure that we are all hopeful. We are looking forward to getting the gala reception. We are going to discuss the topic of the WikiLeaks phenomenon, a political game by the puppet masters or a demonstration of the superiority of virtuality over reality. This is a very broad topic, the broad subject matter. We don't have too much time because of the delay. I'm sure, however, that we will be able to discuss at least some issues. I would like to invite to the podium the speakers, Gideon Rahman, columnist of Financial Times, and a writer from UK, Ian Overton, editor, Bureau of Investigative Journalism, Zafar Abbas, editor of Daily Dawn, Pakistan, Arkady Dubnov, observer, Moskovsky Novosti newspaper, Russian, Nikolai Kuzmin, editor of Kazworld Info, politologist, Kazakhstan, and Nikolai Bogachykin, correspondent for Russia Today, coordinator of the show with Assange. He shared an anecdote that Assange had two options of the show. Well, I'm hopeful Nikolai will share them with us. Let's give a round of applause to welcome our dear distinguished panelists. Before we start our talk, I would like to say that just an hour and a half ago, the information was brought that the Peace Nobel Prize was won this year by the European Union. It was an unexpected decision on the part of the Nobel Prize Committee. As you may know, Julian Assange was running for the Nobel Peace Prize for the second year in a row, but at no avail so far. Let me start with asking a question to Nikolai Bogachykin. Nikolai, why did Julian choose RT for his information as an information platform? How the negotiations started? Who initiated them? Good afternoon. Speaking about why Assange chose us, basically, we are one of those channels which is considered and viewed as an alternative channel. We provide an alternative view and take on what is happening in the world, alternative to the mainstream media. I think that was one of the reasons behind such cooperation between Assange and us. Speaking about negotiations, it all started before the new year. We met a team of people who produced a film for Assange. Honestly, I'm not sure, I'm not aware whether it was already publicized or not. It was a film about the young days of Assange. In the course of our meetings, I can't say it was our initiative or the initiative of Assange, but at some point, one way or another, we decided that it would be interesting if such a bright and contradictory figure could be interviewing on our show similarly intriguing figures who don't have airtime on mainstream channels. I wonder how in other countries, not in Russia, this is a question maybe to Gideon, Ian, and Zafar, how was it perceived? Please.
But okay, Well, to be honest, actually he got a lot of exposure in Britain and the United States anyway, because the New York Times ran huge numbers of the WikiLeaks, so did the Guardian in Britain. So I don't think in our countries it was regarded as something that was coming exclusively out of Russia. It was felt that Assange had done a pretty astute job in getting worldwide coverage. And it's true that in both Britain and the US, the Guardian and the New York Times are regarded as kind of vaguely on the left of the relative political spectrums, but they're mainstream papers. So it's not like he was, finding it tough to get his stuff out, on the contrary.
Zafar, please.
Interesting in a country like ours that the moment it started to come out in papers like The Guardian and the New York Times, we got intrigued that if there are stories about the way the United States works, the way it deals with various governments, there got to be more stuff in the stock about countries like Pakistan, India, and many other countries where we know for a fact that for decades, the United States has been secretly managing, running government, dealing with them. And that is where we got involved in it. And when we established contact with Assange over in London, I flew into London, outside London, met him. And we got the whole stock of what is known as the India files and the Pakistani files. And two of the most prestigious newspapers of the region, the Hindu of India and Dawn of Pakistan, we started researching for weeks and weeks. And when we started publishing those papers of politicians dealing with the ambassador over there, the way the security establishment used to confide in them, all or most of the secrets, something that was hidden from the public. And when those were published, amazing level of pressure that came on us. They just wanted to black out everything. But things have changed in countries like Pakistan. And the public response was amazing. For the first time, there was a situation, where the government, the military, and the politicians were unable to deny what they had been confiding in the ambassador of the United States over there, the kind of things they never said in public, their doublespeak, their hypocrisy came to light. And I think that set the new standards of journalism about the societies like Pakistan and India.
Since Zafar already touched upon this issue, I would like to readdress this question to other panelists. WikiLeaks is a phenomenon. What is unique about it? Who should start? Who would like to start to answer? Thank you very much. WikiLeaks contacted Kazakhstani mass media as well, some Kazakhstani information agencies and internet-based publications did cooperate with Julian Assange, and it didn't affect the format of Kazakhstani journalism at all. WikiLeaks is, as an individual, is an isolated case of organized information leak. When information is publicized violating not maybe the laws, but some confidentiality clauses and privacy, ethical, not necessarily ethical norms. We can debate that, we can challenge that, but there should be some privacy of private space and government space. The secrets that were revealed by WikiLeaks files aren't that terrible and horrendous. People's opinions didn't change. But taboo was removed from certain norms. We can remember that some story took place in Vatican, something that they called WikiLeaks, a staff worker of Pope stole some documents and transferred them to a journalist to fight the evil. Currently, in Azerbaijan, there is a similar story which is comparable and is compared widely to WikiLeaks. The president of Azerbaijan Medical University in exile abroad was videotaping some things, and he's publicizing those videos in Kazakhstan. Kazakhstani citizens may remember that in the web some audio files emerged. Those are the files of phone tapping. It's all the same. It's all the same stuff. It's a violation of certain norms. As a former diplomat, I can say that from the perspective of international relations, information damage was minimum. However, trust was shaken. Confidentiality is based on mutual trust. It's a social contract. Confidentiality is an invisible component without which governments and unions cannot exist. I can conclude on your behalf that you would not give Assange a Nobel Peace Prize. I frankly don't see the link between peace and the materials publicized by WikiLeaks. Arkady, we can say this way that we don't see the link between the European Union and its Nobel Prize. Absolutely, I don't see any connection either in this case too. Remember, in the first year of Barack Obama's presidency, he was given a Nobel Peace Prize. It was an advance to him. Now this prize is a form of support to the European Union. Speaking about Assange, I have a different take on this. We are all journalists. Vladimir Pozner, I think in his book, once demonstrated the difference between the Western type of journalism that he knows very well and the domestic tradition of journalism. For example, you get a paper that you see on the desk of the Minister of Defense of your country. In that paper, in that document, you see that tomorrow your country is announcing a war. A Western journalist will publicize that information immediately because he has the responsibility to deliver that message to the world. Our journalist will not do that because he will hurt the interest of his country's homeland security. Assange, I think Assange's phenomenon should be viewed from the perspective that he is really outstanding. He reveals the cynicism and lack of morals in the global politics, not only US politics. If somebody revealed the private talks of the politicians in our space, we would be shocked, we would experience the same shock. Let's look at it from the perspective of the modern morals, political morals, double standard, triple standard. Assange revealed how disgusting the modern politics is, how contradictory it is. Maybe I could use even more harsh words, but I wouldn't do that. He showed that there are no criteria, there are no moral values that would stop politicians. Therefore, Assange did a very important thing. And that's separate from his personality. We aren't discussing his personality, but what he did. And please, what would be your view?
Sorry. Well, I've actually produced a PowerPoint presentation. Could you put it up? I've got two ideas. If the PowerPoint presentation comes up. I mean, well, whilst it's coming up, I would like to just address the point about there wasn't much explosive in WikiLeaks. I actually think that there was quite explosive information in WikiLeaks. I think I worked on the Iraq war logs with Julian Assange, although we were independently separate from Julian. And I can see this. I can see my PowerPoint presentation, but you can't see it. Can you? No.
Да пока нет, я думаю, все наладится.
Not yet. I'm sure they are working on it.
On whether there was explosive information in WikiLeaks, I think there was. The Iraq war logs clearly demonstrated, for instance, that Barack Obama handed over prisoners to the Iraqi authorities, even when he knew that the Iraqi authorities were torturing people. That was state information. He knew it from his lines of intelligence. Now, that means Barack Obama, as the commander-in-chief, has committed a war crime. He's broken the Geneva Convention. I'm not talking conspiracy theories here. It's written in black and white in the Iraq war logs, and people sort of tend to dismiss that, oh, well, he's the United States president. Of course he can't be culpable of a war crime. Well, he actually is. And the United Nations Special Rapporteur on Human Rights said as much. But I am concerned, though, that there is a possibility that the phenomenon of WikiLeaks could be overstated. A lot of people talk about the Arab Spring being fueled by digital disruption, by WikiLeaks, by Cablegate and Twitter. I'm not sure. I think it's one element of it. I actually think that journalistically you have to look underneath the surface. I believe that the Arab Spring had a huge impetus because of bread prices, actually. The graph in the middle compares 1848 and 2011. 1848 was the year of revolution in Europe. And bread prices there, it's hard for you to see, but bread prices fit in around the middle of that graph. In 2011, bread prices in Egypt, right at the top of the right-hand corner of that graph, bread prices were through the roof in North Africa. Now, you ask why. And this isn't about WikiLeaks. It's about the mass purchase of grain. Glencore had taken a major bet on Russian wheat, had gone long on Russian wheat. And the Russian wheat collapse meant that Glencore was going to lose billions of dollars. It so happened that they had a meeting with President Putin, and that meeting was closed. 2 days later, President Putin suspended Russian wheat. There were, in the 25 years before, the Russian wheat exports had been 7 times less than that year in terms of Russian wheat production. So it wasn't just a matter of the Russian wheat not being there. I think there was a real political motivation. And Glencore profited massively. And who's the biggest exporter of Russian wheat to North Africa? Glencore. If Glencore failed to export Russian wheat and they imported it from Argentina, I think there's a fundamental question about wheat and political wranglings. And that's got nothing to do with WikiLeaks. The second point I want to make, therefore, is that, well, just to sum that up, digital disruption or WikiLeaks is just one aspect. The Iraq war log cable didn't have a massive impact. No war crimes indicted of Obama. The Arab Spring was caused by many factors. The second point I'd like to make is the fact that WikiLeaks just comes at a time where all of media is being disrupted. We've got Google, Facebook, cinema, a whole variety of things. And this age of digital reproduction is causing national newspapers to decline, and it's causing even news audiences around the world to decline. People are becoming less and less engaged with mainstream media. People are moving more and more to Twitter. Well, why is this of interest? Well, I think it's causing a lot of people around the world to be bored and not engaged with the